Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, episode 34. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Well, in this episode, our very special guest, Cher Mereweather from the Provision Coalition. Fantastic discussion on sustainability, upcycling, circular economy, the agri-food industry. Really interesting. I learned a lot. I think our listeners are going to learn a lot too. It really opened my eyes. And there's a festival going on. And you were on the stage with her, Sylvain, at the Seattle show. The real you two were actually physically together.
Yeah,
the audience
absolutely.
was virtual. That was a nice solution. That looked good. Did that feel a little more natural than doing these things on Zoom?
It's a COVID era compromise. I wouldn't do that again at Seattle. I mean, it's always best to be in front of people.
Sure.
I think there were about 1,500 people listening in, which was nice, all over
Yeah.
the world. So
Fantastic.
the carbon footprint of the event was reduced significantly, if you want to put it that way. But you get to meet other speakers, but it was a very tight schedule, so we couldn't
Yeah.
mingle all that much. But I've always been impressed with Cher's dedication to food sustainability in general. And she, with her leadership, she basically survived the end of Provincial Coalition back in 2019 and repurposed it into a really a great successful consulting firm. Yeah,
it's really a great story. Just from operating a not for profit and the kind of mission, and then the work she's doing, and so it's really it's one of those not for profits. It's got this big global mandate. It's almost, how do you get your arms? Where do you start? But she's got a very clear vision about where she starts. So we'll get to that a little later. And of course, we've got our fun new popular segment coming up, Trying Stuff. And we've got product from our friends at Zoglo's.
That's
who
right.
Sent us some plant-based product. Let's angle that a bit because they got nice packaging.
That's right.
And so in a few minutes, we'll get to trying some of this product. And we'll be talking about a couple of things. Plant-based, we talk about that a lot, but I'm also interested in talking about the whole revival of frozen foods, which got a whole new second life, so to speak, in the COVID era. But anyway, on with kind of the news. What's on your mind? Let's talk turkey. How was your Thanksgiving?
Exactly.
There was some. I enjoyed a delicious bird on my smoker. It looked like it was
for
going
a
to be
second time this year because you had one for Christmas in July.
That's right. And, I have to tell you, we then also celebrate American Thanksgiving as yet another excuse to eat turkey. So we're really kind looking at every excuse. You were chatting on Twitter a little bit about the turkey industry, prices kind of going up, down, or sideways. Any sense of how the event was for the turkey farmers of Canada? And it's a big day for them, I'm sure. Any sense of movement on that section of the agri-food business?
Well, I mean, first of all, we all know that the turkey industry is a supply managed industry, so we're not too concerned about the viability of the sector in Canada. We'll always have the turkey we need for Thanksgiving. However, last year it really forced the industry to provide smaller turkeys. Sales were pretty strong still, even though people weren't hosting, which was interesting. This year, I was actually expecting more smaller birds, which is kind of what we got. I don't know if you saw anything out there that suggested perhaps that birds are getting bigger again. But I think that what we ended up doing is to actually buy two birds, essentially two small birds, because we actually had friends over for dinner this weekend, and we hosted them by preparing some great Canadian turkeys. But we had two, not one. What about you?
Well, anecdotally, we get a fresh bird and we order somewhere between 15 and 20 pounds, or 7 or 9 kilos.
20 pounds.
We got 20. We got a big bird. We got a 20-pound bird. 9 kilos.
120-pound bird. Oh my god!
Yeah, and if anybody wants to see what that bird looked like at the end of the 5-hour cook, you can check out my Instagram and I'll post it.
But the one this summer you had, how big was it?
That was interesting. That was actually a frozen bird because I couldn't find a turkey. I looked. Wow. I had to drive about 45 minutes outside of Toronto. Literally, I drove up to Caledon and I phoned all around trying to find a fresh bird. None to be had.
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe opportunity lost, because I know the turkey farmers would love people to think of their product more than just something to eat on,
Yeah.
Christmas
Christmas,
and
yeah, on two
Thanksgiving.
days, yeah. And it's
Um,
such a great meat. It's a lean meat, nutritious
yep,
meat. We should
and
eat
easy
turkey
to
more
cook, right?
often. Yeah, it's very easy to cook.
I'm a big believer in that because, as everybody knows who's been following along, but it's it's not it's a bit intimidating, right? I mean, there's a bit of an aura around it. I think because of it's tied up with family
But don't
gatherings,
you
but
think
it's
that larger birds don't provide you with tender meat? I always find that like smaller
hmm.
birds, the meat is very different. You don't see the difference?
No, no. I mean,
Really?
it was no, it was fine. Now I brined it a little bit, um, which I didn't need to do. It's fresh bird, and then I think what the big problem is, Sylvain, for a lot of people, is their ovens don't cook at the temperature they think they do. This is kind of
Ah,
a
that's
hidden
possible.
secret, is that most ovens have a plus or minus 20% range on the temperature it actually says. So I've, for the past 10 years, been cooking out on my professional barbecue, which when you set a temperature, it stays. I think a lot of people overcook their bird. I think that's where that comes in. Um, anyway, maybe the
I have to
Ontario
tell you,
turkey
I mean,
farmers are.
it's very easy to prepare a turkey, and it gets too dry for sure.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I see that, but I must say, and I don't like to brag, but my wife really cooks a killer turkey. It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
good. She knows how to cook it and cook it well. Yeah,
All right. Well, I am thereby
not as
inviting
much as
myself
you
to the
though. I
next
mean, you're
turkey
the
feed.
expert.
Well, I don't know about that.
Just to be clear
Uh,
here.
just to be clear, I'm inviting myself to the next, the next Charlebois dinner. There we go. Um, one thing I wanted to jump on, and then we'll get into our trying stuff segment because our food is almost done for the audience out there. We're cooking while we're talking,
Yes.
so our food's almost done.
I can
Uh,
smell it actually.
I can a little bit too. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too.
Elon Musk, Leonardo DiCaprio. What has this got to do with lab grown meat? What are you talking about that we need an actor or a nutcase, a genius, to make lab grown meat move forward. What are you thinking here?
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been impressed with Elon Musk's influence. The e-car was really just a dream 15 years ago, and now, I mean, that company is worth over $800 billion. It's pumping out millions of cars now. More and more people are thinking that perhaps our economy will only have electric cars by 2035. I mean, that's where
Yeah,
we're going, and that's due to one person who's basically went up against the oil industry,
yeah,
the car manufacturers sector, the
a lot,
dealerships that are
a lot.
really influential in the market. He
Yeah,
went up all against that to provide the e-car to us, and he built a case, sold the e-car to us for 15, 20 years, and it worked. So he basically created this pull effect with this new technology. And I think when you look at cultured meat, for example, billions and billions of dollars are being poured into this new technology. There are
really.
about right now about 150 different research projects around the world looking at cultured meat, seafood, beef, chicken, you name it. It's everywhere. And as you know, Singapore has just legalized the commercialization of lab grown chicken, because by 2030, they want 30% of their meat to be grown in Singapore with no space, zero space. So, how do you do that? Well, you turn labs into farms, or basically.
Hmm,
And so,
interesting.
when I thought about the money being poured in, most of that money is non-ag. These
Hmm,
people are venture capitalists looking at food, and I just heard that recently Leonardo DiCaprio just invested his money on two startups that are looking at culture and meat. And 12 years ago, it was the same guy who invested millions into this other startup called Beyond Meat, which is
right,
now worth
right.
$16 billion.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, when you look at the argument related to culture meat, I mean, environmentally, I mean, the case is pretty
yeah.
strong. From
It's hard.
a from a
It's truly hard to argue against, but the notion of it is quite foreign. It's quite
Oh,
unusual
it's
for what
still
you need, right?
absolutely, yeah,
And so what you're saying, you need some, it's a lot of money going into it, but it's very diffuse, and you need somebody to focus it.
you want someone, you want a champion, like Elon Musk did with the e-car essentially, and in food we don't have that. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, maybe Leonardo DiCaprio will be that person, but he's an actor, so he's not necessarily invested. So at
Mm,
some point, I mean, I actually do think that there's a future for lab grown meat, but there are some substantial challenges when you think
yeah.
about things like our farmers, land occupancy in Canada. I mean, what do you do with all the fields that are used right now to grow grains to feed
Mm,
animals?
yeah.
And so, what do you do with that? And what do you do with labeling? If we are to produce, if we are to use, nurture this technology to serve the public, well, without labeling, how do you do it? We're seeing it with genetically modified salmon. Genetically modified salmon is available. It's 60% less to produce, but we're not reaping the benefits as consumers. We're
Mm,
not paying our salmon cheaper now. It's actually more
mm,
expensive. And so
mm,
we're doing all these things. Elon Musk basically built a case for the e-car to consumers, for the environment, for people who want to make a difference,
mm-hmm.
or even some people want to buy an e-car to save money on gas, whatever.
Or because it's fun. I mean that's the other element is, just like food's got to taste good. There's got to be some fun to it. I mean, the
Exactly.
e-car, all the fun things that it does. A small percentage relative people are going to buy it, but it's not cheap. You
No,
can buy a cheaper car. Uh, Given the price of gas today, the math starts to work a bit better. But I love the way you've brought these two analogies together, and bringing in actor investors. Ashton Kutcher, for example, is a huge investor behind the scenes of a lot of interesting startups
yeah.
that I can name. So, these guys got a lot of cash, man, like, in our
And
society.
there's
And
a lot
it's
of
nice to see.
non-ag cash, and this is the key issue. Not non-ag people are interested in ag, which is great. They
Yeah.
bring new ideas, but at the same time, you got to sell them. You got to sell them publicly, openly, because right now, what we've seen over the last 30 years are new technologies benefiting farmers, benefiting
Mm,
processors, but nobody, and that's why the GMO debate has been a complete disaster, because nobody even bothered to make a case to consumers about why we're actually using genetic engineering
yeah.
in farming at all. And that's why the
Yeah.
pesticide issue has become such a hot
Hot button
rod of
issue.
it. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, because it's a problem when it
I
comes to
mean, listen,
communications.
it's right on the package here, right?
It,
Non-GMO proteins, right? It's right
oh, it's
number two.
right there, and you're going to see more of that for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a pause. I'm going to hit the pause button. Our food is ready. All right, we're back with our fun new segment. Trying Stuff, which is really popular. And so I got to thank you. It was your idea. It's a lot of fun. We're meeting all
Our
kinds of new
idea.
companies.
And frankly,
Well,
we always record around lunchtime. So seriously, it was a selfish idea, really.
so our food today is thanks to Zoglo's, which is plant based, and they sent us. We got today. We got some meatballs. Zoglo's incredible. We got pub style tenders.
Yeah.
And we got cutlets. Now they also sent us very generous. They also sent us burgers, which I had on the weekend. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
Couple of types of burgers. They got hot dogs. They got shawarma. They got just a great amount of stuff. And we should remind the folks that we're not paid for this. It's just provided. There's nothing here that we're under any responsibility or anything other than people send us stuff. We try it and we'll see if we like it. So it's all for you,
Exactly.
the people, right? Right on, Sylvain. So I got mine. Just came out of the oven.
Yes, mine too,
Here we
right
are.
here.
Right,
So what do you
excellent.
have on your plate right there, Michael?
So on my plate, I've got the meatballs here, and I've got the chicken tenders or pub tenders here, and
Okay.
then I've got the chicken cutlets here.
Right.
Um, Visually they look fantastic. I mean, if you put this
Yes.
plate in front of me, I wouldn't know just visually that that they were not meat based.
You can't
The
tell.
packaging, no, you can't
No,
tell. The smell
no.
is there too. Like the smell smells like
As I was
again.
opening up the oven door, I kid you not, I thought like I was having some sort of beefsteak, and I mean,
Yeah,
it smelled like the real thing for
yeah.
sure. Yeah,
The packaging is top drawer. I mean, there's nothing. This is fantastic packaging. It's appetizing.
yeah,
So
very
let's
clear, and they're very clear in terms of what's not in them for
yeah,
sure. Lactose
yeah,
free, non GMO, no cholesterol, no trans fats. It's pretty clear, and yeah, the package is pretty appealing, and the instructions to cook are also
simple.
very clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I had a burger. I cooked a burger over. My wife and I had cheeseburger Saturday night, and I liked it. I liked the burger a lot. I haven't tried this stuff yet. We'll try it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's tuck in and
Let's
try a
dig
piece.
in. I'm trying the meatballs first.
All right. I'll try the meatballs with you then. So there we go. There's the meatball.
Yeah.
Little dipping sauce.
Oh, you got the sauce.
I got a plum sauce and a spicy Thai sauce.
I'm going naked. No sauce. Naked.
These meatballs are really good. Like they're really good.
Yeah, yeah, they're really tasty. Yeah.
This is great because
So I'm gonna
I
try
think.
the schnitzel now.
All right, let me try that too.
And you're talking to a guy who spent a year in Austria. So
Yeah,
schnitzel, I
you know
tasted
your
made them.
schnitzel.
So I'm trying a schnitzel right here.
Mm-hmm. Nice crisp. I can hear it. Nice crispy.
Wow.
Wow, right? Really good.
The only thing about the schnitzel is I would want to make them a little bit thicker. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They seem a little bit thin, but other than that, I mean, they taste very good. Yeah, they're very thin.
Now let me try the. I'm going to try the pub tenders. I got some spicy Thai sauce just to mix it up a little bit. Those are.
What do you think?
Really, really good. Now that one on the chicken tenders, I can tell it's not chicken. That's the first time.
Yeah.
Like that one, I can tell it's not chicken, but it's good. But I can tell it's not chicken. But the texture, smell, flavor, all ring true for me. And the burger that I had on the weekend, I had their plant-based burger, incredible. They're Zoglos. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Zoglos.
Yeah, Zoglos.
Burger. It was moist, tender. I mean, if there's any knock that we had on it, I think the color is not quite right. The color is a little too red for my liking. And when I looked at it,
there was the mushroom-based one and the other one as well. The mushroom one was a bit dark, and but I must say, how many plant-based products have you tried so far in the last 5 years?
I've only tried them. Okay. Here's the way I've been thinking about it, is explaining to someone. It feels to me like there's been 3 generations of plant-based product. I mean, I've been eating plant-based product for 20 years. First generation, dry as dust, no flavor, just not good. The second generation kind of
disgusting, really.
Yeah,
that was the pre Beyond Meat era.
Well, and then it went to the other side of the curb. There were plant-based products that had so much oil in them to make them moist that they were just, the ingredient deck was just like, you might as well. It was not good, right? Like they were moist.
Smorgasbord of everything.
Yeah. It was not good.
Companies were infatuated to replicate or to actually do the same thing. So it tastes the same thing. What's unique about Zoglos, I think, is that it's kind of a mixture. Yes, they want to get close to what we know as consumers, but they also want to offer a distinctive taste as well. That's kind of what I'm getting here. Yeah, because I've tried. This is probably my 20th plant-based product, or my 20th taste of a product coming from a different company. I went to IFT in Chicago a few years ago, and there were tons of plant-based products out there. And I think I tried 15 of them that same day. And there was maybe a couple that really impressed me, but I would actually put Zoglo's in that category.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's 2 years later now,
Mm.
but Zoglo's I think is one of the top plant-based products I've ever tasted. To be honest,
Yeah, they're really good. Like I said, if I was to give him any feedback, it was you'd like your schnitzel a little thicker, being a
yeah.
schnitzel expert. I thought I thought the burger was a little too red, and it kind of I looked in the ingredients and there was some beet juice in it, but
But I
not
got to tell
ideal.
you, the taste of the
Taste
burgers,
was great.
it was
Great.
really unbelievable.
Yeah,
Oh
it
yeah,
was it was it was very good. You know what I wanted to talk about? We talk about plant based. What I found
yeah.
interesting is this, and I was watching this old movie Bullet from 1969, Steve McQueen. If you remember the movie Bullet, got to see
I
that
don't think I've
movie.
ever seen it actually.
Best car chase, by the way, in movie history. 10-minute car chase. Got to watch Bullet. I'll send you the link to it.
Really?
Just
Okay.
the car chase, but the whole movie is just it's a fascinating look back at 1969. Steve McQueen, Jacqueline Bisset, Robert Duvall
I
makes a
wasn't born in 1969, by the way, Michael. It's
well,
just so
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. I was born, but I was not driving a Ford Mustang. And anyway, where am I going with this? In one scene, Steve McQueen, the hipster guy, right? He goes into the grocery store and he picks up like 20 Hungry Man dinners, frozen dinners. And, when I was growing up, frozen dinners were a thing, right? You get a TV table, you get a frozen dinner. And for decades, they kind of went completely out of favor. The
Oh
frozen
yeah.
aisle was a great place to be alone with your thoughts, basically, in a lot of grocery stores. But it
And you want,
feels
and frankly, just for a while you didn't want to be caught in public
right.
looking at freezers. I mean, it was kind of a last resort sort of thing. It was seen like that for sure.
But is it my imagination, or did COVID kind of reintroduce everyone? I think it feels like two things happen at the same time. The quality's gone way up, in my mind, in the sector, but also people kind of reintroduced themselves to the frozen sector. What have you learned, or what are your thoughts about the frozen aisle in the grocery store?
I think the frozen aisle has been going through a renaissance in the last 5 years. I think it was happening even before COVID. Uh, Maybe it became more obvious during COVID, but I can tell you, whenever you went to Seattle, whenever you went to different places, we were talking about the freezer aisle for many years before COVID. A lot of investors were looking into frozen foods, and frankly, that aisle is pretty appealing because prices don't fluctuate as much, so you can actually build trust, you can actually build loyalty
Interesting.
much more
Interesting.
easily with frozen foods, because once you get a price, it's set for a while. You don't spook people like at the meat counter or other places in the grocery
Mm,
store. And for investors, they love that they can actually build a brand. And like, for
yeah.
example, Zoglo's, who just entered the market, I think a lot of companies are looking at that freezer aisle as a friendly place to park food and get consumers intrigued.
Well, and when I say the quality, there's some products like uh, almost ready-made croissants. Longo's has got a
Yeah,
frozen croissant product. You put that in the oven 7, 8 minutes later, you got a croissant like you've been at the bakery. Like the
that's right.
quality, there's no sacrifice in quality, right? So anyway, that's an interesting observation. My last observation about this, I'm thrilled about these meatballs because I haven't had spaghetti and meatballs in 20 years, but now I'm going to make spaghetti and
Really?
meatballs. Yeah, because
Well, yeah.
as the folks at home may know, I don't eat a lot of red meat, right? So, I
I have a sample of four at home with four kids, and they're not picky, but they are. I mean, they're kids,
sure,
obviously.
sure,
And when I was bringing home plant-based products a few years ago, it just didn't go well at
yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, However, I must say, over the weekend, when I asked them to try the burgers from Zoglo's, there was no resistance, zero. They loved it. And
Interesting.
I don't know what you did, but I actually cooked it I put it on the barbecue.
Yeah, I did
Uh,
too. Yep.
yeah, and of course, it behaves very differently than regular
Mm,
beef. I'll admit, because it doesn't
yeah.
sizzle. You don't have that smell.
Maillard
However,
effect. You don't get the
yeah,
Maillard effect. Yeah.
exactly. and it's a very, very round product. I mean, you can tell
Yeah.
it's really manufactured and everything,
Yep.
but the taste itself, once you forget about it and you put it on a bun and you put your condiments,
Yep.
it's just like a regular burger, really.
Yeah, my advice as a barbecuer, don't forget I have my the Last Request barbecue show. So I'm a YouTube chef, which means it's not much, but whatever, is they're easy to overcook because you look at them and they're
Oh,
hard to
yes.
tell in a conventional way if they're ready, right? Because,
That's true.
if you're cooking a meat burger, you got to get a good sense. You can
Actually,
take,
I just didn't know when it was ready to pick up. I mean, I had
I just,
no idea.
yeah. No, no,
I wasn't getting the signals I would get normally with beef or
no,
pork.
no,
Yeah.
you got to pay attention to the label, right? It's
Yeah.
I think it was 7 minutes, 7 to 8 minutes, which feels too short because it's cooked from frozen, but it wasn't. But yeah, so there's a bit of learning too. Anyway, so congratulations to our friends at Zoglo's. It's a great product, and I think we'll put a link into their site. And you can go figure out where to go buy it yourself. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was our fun news segment, trying stuff.
Trying stuff.
All right, on with the show, so to speak. So I wanted to talk about high end restaurant trouble. So there's an article in the Globe and Mail. Susan
Yeah.
Karansky put out an article, and a couple of things jumped out at me from the article. I don't think we need to chronicle why they're in such a tough spot. Given it's not exactly great takeout food. There's a lot of cost and preparation.
Oh, yeah.
But two things jumped out at me. One is. And Vidge is, Vidge in Vancouver, one of my favorite restaurants. I always go there. There's a lot of cost that goes into it. I thought two things and get your idea. One, I thought, and it wasn't covered, and I reached actually out to Todd Barkley at the Restaurants Canada for his opinion. But you know that businesses can only write off now 50% of their meals, right? It's only a 50% write-off. That wasn't always the case. It used to be 100%. So it feels like somebody should be asking the federal government to go back to 100% to get the business diners. Because without the business diners, a lot of these restaurants are really going to struggle no matter what, because that's a big piece of their weekday
absolutely.
meals.
Yeah.
And if I could write off 100% of my meal, that'd be pretty great. I would go, that might spur some interest.
You would take out your customers and more business for sure.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, if you could write off 100% instead of 50, that'd be good. It wouldn't. It's not hard to do. Just change the rules, right? That's a good thing. Maybe that's one thing. But then ultimately, it all comes down to, like Vidge was saying in the article, you got to be an amazing operator. If you're an amazing operator, you make no money on the food, you make it on the alcohol. Maybe you come 5% at the end of the day. We've been talking about this for months. Something's got to change because this industry is just very difficult to see a future for, that nobody makes money in it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack, but fiscally, I think something can be done very quickly. I mean, the tax regime that we have in Canada is not favorable for small businesses, really. I mean, and that's something that needs to be recognized. It's uncool in Canada to ask the government to allow business to pay less tax. That's the problem that we have. We need to get comfortable with taxes, and often people feel, well, if you can afford to go to a nice restaurant, you can afford to pay at least half. That's kind of how people think, which is unfortunate because at the end of the day, it's about supporting businesses. It's not just about allowing people to profit. And so that's really one problem that I see. The other issue, of course, is related to costs. How you manage costs, how you make your businesses profitable. That's another.
You got to increase the food price. There's no two ways around it. I mean,
But as I told you before, I mean, I actually do think that the fine dining sector will be managed like airlines from now on. If you can't fill your dining room one night, you'll stay closed. That's basically how it's going to work. That's the only way to make money.
Interesting. Well, what's interesting is that, and I have seen even one step further, some restaurants having you pay in advance on a fixed price menu, not just book in advance, but actually pay in advance because you book and you don't show up.
The entire bill?
For the entire bill. There's two of us coming. The fixed price is $100. You got to pay in advance because we can't take the risk of you not showing up anymore. Like, I'm starting to see that more and more, and I
So
think
you're
it's
not
not.
even asking the person to, because I know that some restaurants, when you make a reservation, they'll take your credit card number and there's a
Yeah,
fee if you don't show up.
yeah.
But the
No,
fee
this is
would actually be the entire bill?
that's right. So restaurants are
Wow.
reducing their menu and saying, here's what we have on the menu tonight. And we're talking fine dining here, obviously. We're not talking fast casual.
Yeah.
Here's what we have on the menu tonight. That's what we're serving. And if you're coming in, it's $100 per person, fixed price. And you got to pay us now. And, if I'm coming anyway, I'd do it. And maybe, I guess, look, we couldn't make it in. I can use my $100 later. Not so great. But anyway, just that's innovative, right? That's a new approach. I think you're going to need some new thinking to really help this industry
Oh yeah, I think
make it through
so.
the other side.
And I know a lot of people in the industry don't like to talk about the Great Reset, but I think it's going to be forced on them.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
They won't have a choice but to think differently. And
Yeah.
um, and but I think on the fiscal side, there's something that needs to be done there for sure. More like some governments, some provincial governments have actually encouraged people to go out and encourage their hotels and restaurants, and they can deduct some of their expenses, which is great. I think we need to do more of that. We saw that in England. We saw that in different
Right.
parts of the world.
England
Um,
just paid people. They said, here's 20
yeah,
quid or whatever. Here's 20
let's
quid, go
face
eat.
it. There are several people scared, still scared of the virus. They don't want to go out. You want to motivate them, and the best way to do it
Yeah.
is by using their pocketbook. It's the only way to you can motivate people to go out as much as possible. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, let's bring on our very special guest, Cher Mereweather. She's the CEO of Provision Coalition. I met her, so to speak, virtually when you two were on the stage at CL. We were fortunate enough; she joined us for a great conversation around sustainability and upcycling, recycling, not upcycling. And I loved her idea
the
that
Upcycle Festival
upcycle festival, and there's no such thing as food waste. So let's
waste.
hear that, because that's an interesting part of the interview. Anyway, great interview. Have a listen. All right, that was a great interview with Cher, and I wanted to just follow up on one last thing just before we go. You put out some stats around food waste and how the ugly fruit is now making it more into the main aisles of grocery store, and you threw out some stats, and I'm going to read them here. 35.5 million tons of perfectly good food are wasted. 48% of that is by consumers. You could fill 319,000 Boeing 787 Dreamliners, or I guess
Yeah.
1.3 billion Cessnas. Let's do that, whatever that number is. So, what did you
But
think of her idea about the naming convention itself being a problem? Food waste.
well, I mean, she's the one that got me thinking about food rescuing. Really, I mean, Second Harvest with Lori Nickel, who
Yeah,
we
great guest.
interviewed many
Yeah.
moons ago. Can remember. I mean, she's the food rescuer of Canada. I mean, she's number one,
Mm,
and she. I mean, Second Harvest started back in 1987 or something like that. I mean, it's been a while. They've been at this for a long time. And I've always felt, well, food rescuing, that's a cute way, to sell food waste or to, get people engaged with the management of food waste. But Cher's comments got me thinking about, what's food waste 2.0? Like, how is it going to look? How do we get people to care about food waste? And I think the lexicon, the language we use, is probably part of the problem. Food waste is unsexy. I mean, people, who wants to eat food waste? Who wants to use food waste? But
that
when you
was her
think
point,
about
right? Who wants to eat food waste? Right, right away the
exactly.
naming.
But
Never
if you're
thought of it
talking
that way.
about food rescuing or food repurposing, then
Hmm.
it just changes the allure, I think, of that resource. Because I agree with Sherman, it is a resource and a
Yeah.
very valuable resource. And a lot of resources have been put into manufacturing, whatever we eat, whether it's products by Zoglos or anything else. I mean, there's a lot of investment being done, and that needs to be recognized in the language we use, I guess. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought it was so innovative. I mean, it changes the narrative. It changes the discussion that, there's food that is good and there's food that is waste. And, it reminds me of the kind of best before date things
Yeah.
that we talked about even on last episode, right? best before doesn't mean terrible after or bad to eat after. It's so much. Anyway. She's got a big remit, so to speak. But boy, it sounds like she's both passionate, super smart, got a great team behind her.
Passionate? Oh yeah.
Yeah,
She could sell it on eBay. I mean, it's really she is she's I mean, she's obviously very passionate, but she's so knowledgeable about and 10, 15 years ago, sustainability was a space occupied by a bunch
the
of
niche. Yeah,
it was niche. We need to talk about it because we need to click a box or something. But now, I mean, it's recognized by many companies as a way to make more money in the future.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? If we wrap up this episode, capitalism works, right? It improves people's lifestyle. Pay more for your food. People need to make money and make a good living and a good return when they open a restaurant. Sustainability and making money don't need to be two different things, right?
Exactly.
Which is,
exactly. And she marries both worlds very well in her work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, listen, great interview, great episode. Enjoyed. I'm gonna stop the episode now because I'm gonna eat the rest of this great food.
Me too, actually.
I'm smelling it now. I'm like, let's get over it. Let's get over this podcast. All right. Well, if you like what you heard, you can follow us on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, your favorite podcast platform. Please rate, review. Be sure and recommend to a friend or colleague in grocery, food service, restaurant industry. Be sure and look for us on our YouTube channel, where we have both the whole bonus copy because we snip a bit of this out for length. So go to YouTube, look up the Food Professor podcast. I'm Michael LeBlanc, producer and host of the all new Conversation with Commerce Next. And you are?
I'm the Food Professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Have a safe week, Sylvain, and we'll see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.